Good morning, everybody. This is SMASho with the Smashenheimer Ranch Project, coming at you with a Cycle 25 activity update. Oh, just kidding. This is El SMASho coming at you from behind the toilet paper mic, and we're starting things out looking at the local yellow dwarf here in 193 angstroms. Coronal holes right in the Earth-facing zone, and sunspots setting in the west. We see both a Cycle 25 and a Cycle 24 sunspot at the same time. Let's get into some more analysis. Heading to HelioViewer here and looking at the fields. There are the fields associated with those regions. And we see two more active regions up here. Whoopsie. Can't use Epic Pen, I forgot. Oh, I can use Epic Pen. All right, nice. So there's an active region up here and one here. This is Sunspot 2760. And that's Sunspot 2762. And please leave a comment if you think the sun is gendered. Here is the 304 angstroms view. A bunch of filaments on the east. Not a lot of plasma in between the Earth and sun. And let's look at those active regions. There's a 304 angstroms view of that. Again, we see two cycles happening at the same time. Cycle 24 and Cycle 25 up here at the higher latitude. We did see some X-ray flaring, which is why it says solar flares in the title. And here's the 171 angstroms view of the same regions. And Sunspot 2762 is going to have a lot of opportunities for folks to get some nice close-up images of the magnetic looping associated with those fields. For you new viewers out there, 171 angstroms is ionized iron UV emission spectra. And let's move on. Now, yesterday we did a great video with Diamond, aka David Moore Yellow from Oppenheimer Ranch Project, and I see a video that I haven't watched yet myself. Cosmic Catastrophe, Younger Dryas, Fragments of Many Objects. Scientific evidence overwhelming. And yesterday's video was called The Diamond Anvil, Too Hard to Smash, Episode 4. If you haven't watched it yet, check it out. It was a good time. Symbiotic pairing, we talk about Robitaille, we talk about Cygnus X3. And we've got to put this in the playlist. I don't know if you were aware, folks, but we've got actually playlists now. So if you head to youtube.com/smashamash, you'll see playlists. There are already 63 videos segmented in the cosmology segment playlist, which is for some reason set to private. I don't know what's up with that. We got to fix that because that's kind of important stuff. Now, one of the things we talked about yesterday, and thanks again, Diamond, for that information. It's brilliant. Symbiotic companion plant pairing is good times from where I sit, which is not behind the golden EIB microphone, but behind the smashified toilet paper mic. One of the things we talked about also was the fact that I've exited society, which is a mindset, not an actual physical thing, which is why we celebrated last Saturday night with some good old American California Corbel Brute. And so it's caused us to start writing a song, actually. I don't want to be part of the human race. When I think about you, I touch my face. I touch my face. Anyway, subscribe over on BitChute if you haven't. We'll be putting up more exclusive content. We're also on Twitter, twitter.com/smashamash. And let's talk about demonstrating cutting-edge proof-of-concept solutions to problems. Laughter, folks. Laughter, yes. So, also morale is an issue when you're locked in your house. So one of the things that we like to talk about is morale, right? One of the reasons, now I learned this when I used to do insurance sales, right? You can look at all of life as sales, right? So check this out. Next time you see somebody, instead of asking them how they are, how are you? How's it going? Don't say that. Say what's good. Now they might be confused, and they might be like, I don't know, the Goodyear blimp. But really you're asking a real question there. For instance, somebody says it to me, my standalone answer is typically cheesesteaks, one of my favorite foods, or perhaps chicken wings, another good choice, as I like the salty, spicy foods. Now, if you ask somebody what's good, the reason you want to ask them what's good instead of how are you is because if they're having a bad time, not only are they going to remember, but they're going to tell you about it, which could make you have a bad time too, and that's not the point. If you ask them what's good, they might remember something that's good and increase their morale instead of dropping it. And I don't know why I'm on this, because that's just somebody's Facebook page. We're also on Minds, minds.com/smashomash. Companies like Google, Facebook, Twitter, and Apple are zombie corporations, and they're now basically unable to get out of their own ways as they hire more attorneys than software engineers to try to escape their own liability. These companies are zombies. They have absolutely no agility to react to the marketplace or behave in appropriate manners. So if they did, we wouldn't have any problem with them. But since they don't, we have alternative tech, such as Minds.com, the alternative to Facebook. So check us out there and send us some tokens, as we're nearly out and we're unable to boost our posts. So we're also on Locals. Now this is Dave Rubin's brand new social media foray, smashomash.locals.com. We've started a community there, and we're going to be connecting with various other ones. Let's get back to solar data. Anybody? How about the 335 angstroms view for once? One of my favorites. I like the soothing blue tones. Plus it looks cool. Now if the sun really turns blue, that could be a problem. And the SDO is taking a little time to load here. Just give it a moment. I apologize for the delay, as this is being live streamed to Twitch. It's twitch.tv/smashomash if you weren't aware. And if you're watching us live, please leave us a comment. And it's not loading. We're just going to move on. Loading very, very slowly here. And let's get to some more data. KP index coming off of a long time, nearly a 24-hour period there at a KP 0, now up to 1 coming off the floor. 10.7 centimeter radio flux at 70 solar flux units. And by the way, I just wanted to note for you viewers out there, swpc.noaa.gov/products-n-data. If you search for the Space Weather Prediction Center, products and data, you will find this. Don't Google it, because that's not a verb, that's just a scam. Use DuckDuckGo or some objective search engine. Who knows? Now, you can get all kinds of different alerts, watches, and warnings. One of the things that you get here is the same stuff that generates things like Ben Davidson's disaster app is largely driven by this information, which you can get delivered to your email box. We'll tell you later about how to do that. And let's get back to some current data. Here's where things like planets are in the solar system. As Mars and Jupiter are swinging past Saturn, taking their good old time, the Earth is creeping up on Mars. There's where things will be in a week. It's an oppositional Mercury situation. And remember, folks, straight lines are very scary when it comes to space. And now that there's a straight line between Earth and Mercury, it's time to, I don't know, get in your deadly bunkers. Your doomsday bunkers. Oh my God, there's a line between the Earth and Mercury. Now we're looking at the stereo A, and for you new viewers out there, if you're wondering where that is, that's located way back here. Stereo B is located out here. And the reason we're looking at stereo A is because it gives us insight into coronal mass ejections that are facing the Earth, and we see a little bit of ejecta once again. So there's a little bit of ejecta headed our way. Nothing to really worry about or try to infiltrate Jeff Bezos' underground bunker. As you can see, most of that ejecta once again appears to be missing to the west, shown here on the LASCO C2. Now this one here is actually in between the Earth and the Sun, near Lagrange point 1. Here's the LASCO C3, as we see Venus swinging around the back end of the Sun, and we should see this on the C2 momentarily. If you're wondering what a coronagraph is, a coronagraph is where we put this disk in between the sun and the instrument so that we can get insight into the corona, the coronagraph. Again, that's on the SOHO spacecraft. It's the SOHO mission, and that's the LASCO C3. Here's a star chart I like to use in-the-sky.org, and we're not affiliated. I just like the site. And here's the GOES X-ray flux. We did see a small B-class flare yesterday. No real surprises there. Nothing to really worry about. There's the proton flux, which is totally flatlined. And next we're going to look at the real-time solar wind. And we see a shifting phi angle as we did show prep early this morning. We see the phi angle all over the place. And that is not really that big of a surprise there, as we see a coronal hole facing right in the Earth-facing zone. Current solar wind density somewhat elevated here at 10.9, nearly 11 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed still very low at 304 kilometers a second. And we do see effects of the density spike on the magnetosphere. So here you can see very large, wide Van Allen belts here. As you see a lot of space in this area, that's the plasmasphere right there, as there's a bunch of material just stuck in the plasma backwater in between the bow shock and the ionosphere. And we see most of the pressure here in the magnetotail. Anyway, there's 4 hours of data, geospace magnetosphere movies, and we're trying to shorten the video a little bit today, folks, so I apologize if it's not long enough. We may make another one this afternoon from here behind the toilet paper microphone. Fisher-Price, my first pandemic. And we see significant magnetic perturbations here, both over the Canadian North Pole, the Siberian North Pole, and we see two different locations of perturbations in the south. We see perturbation locations over here and over here, as the South Pole has crept into the southern Indian Ocean in this sort of a fashion, moving toward southwestern Australia during this polar excursion. I'll let it play through a second time to allow that to sink in before we move on to more information, as there's all too much to cover. And of course, now that I've left society, I'm free to focus on whatever I want, like the GOES magnetometer. So we see very low readings here, and this has to do with that coronal mass ejection, I would imagine. And as plasma is able to block the readings of a magnetometer, as the magnetic field effects is absorbed by, and it causes the plasma to heat up and move around. What it doesn't do is cause the plasma to become a stable magnet. In any case, there's the GOES magnetometer data. Here's the Gong 2 data. It's the top view ecliptic plane field plot. Nothing to write home about here. The whole current sheet, at least in the Earth-facing, in the earthly portion of the interplanetary magnetic field, is entirely charged up by the South Pole, shown here in red. The South Solar Polar Field. No North Pole polarity sheet in sight. Now keep in mind this data is an hour and 32 minutes old. Here's a line of sight field plot showing the B field, which is the one in which you live, in blue. And you can see the sunspots affecting that a little bit there. Most of the activity at or north of the equator. Keep in mind the magnetic environment can change with no warning. Relativistic electrons are still at very low levels, surprisingly low levels. And we're getting a little bit more protons now, so we've got a fairly high proton density, which means we're going to continue to see the electrons tank. So the electron storm warnings have now been canceled, and there's no way to forecast this because we don't really know. We can't forecast when a coronal mass ejection can happen. Coronal mass ejections happen without solar flares and without sunspots, as we've shown repeatedly on the channel. So the GOES electron flux is going to remain fairly low throughout the day. We were not expecting warning levels in the next 24 hours on the electron flux. Next, looking at the ionosphere, here's 6 hours of wobbly data. And it's been wobbly for the last 3 days or so, 3-4 days, especially on the nighttime side. You can see it's kind of jumping all over the place there. And keep in mind, folks, when we do the videos, we're typically showing the nighttime portion of the South Atlantic anomaly at the same time as it's around midnight there, so it's just after midnight there. And so it includes that data. And yeah, here's the latest image. That's 8:15, and it's actually looking pretty normal by that point. Next, windy.com for the pressure maps. Here are where pressure cells are. We'll let this advance. This is the GFS forecast here, and allow me to vanish. And here's where we anticipate things to be, according to the GFS forecast, around 12 noon tomorrow. And there's a reason why we don't do more in-depth weather forecasts, folks. We are going to start doing that. That's going to be a thing. We'll probably only focus on U.S. weather unless commenters request other places. And I'm willing to take up the challenge of forecasting weather in the Southern Hemisphere. So we saw a pretty decent-sized quake here and some funky stuff going on the earthquake front. Let's check it out. Here's a 5.4 near Atacama, probably in the Atacama Desert. And it's at depth, so it's a 5.4 magnitude, but at 148 kilometers depth. Western South America heads up for a larger quake at the surface. Bodie, California, showing us a quake at 800 meters above sea level. Let's check the location of this one. Another quake east of Mono Lake there. Again, 800 meters above sea level. That's a deep quake, isn't it? A very, very shallow quake. And let's continue up the list here. I'm just going to let the list scroll. See some more quakes in Idaho. And we're only going to cover certain types of quakes here, such as deep ones. So here's another deep quake at Argentina, followed about an hour and a half later by a deep quake at Chile at a higher magnitude. Those are both in the 4 range and close to 100 kilometers depth. Here's another deep quake at a 4.5 magnitude and 207 kilometers. So a big deep quake event. There's another deep quake. That one came in at 2103 UT on yesterday, April 30th. It's a 4.2 magnitude at 214 kilometers. Another deep quake, that one's a 5.4, so we see a larger and larger quakes at similar depth there. And again, if I were in Western South America, I would have more than an earthquake plan. I would have all kinds of plans. Another deep quake at South America, so a big-time deep quake event. And keep in mind, folks, these quakes would be at a much higher magnitude if they were at the surface. Here's a very deep quake at Fiji, 388 kilometers depth at a 4.9 magnitude. So serious deep quake event going on, folks, right as we see a coronal hole facing the Earth as a bunch of sunspots set. Now, volcanoes, we see some new volcanic activity here on the list. Kluchevskoy, exploding, 20,000-foot plume there. Abiko, 7,000-foot plume there. Flight level 5,000 at Aso. Suwanose Jima, flight level 6,000 there. And here's one back on the list, Bagana. It was been on the list before, then it came off. Now it's back as it's exploding, producing a 10,000-foot plume. Yasur, that one's back on the list, exploding, 6,000-foot plume there. Popocatépetl, back on the list, exploding, 20,000-foot plume there. And while we don't see any volcanic ash clouds at Sangay, and while we're unable to detect volcanic ash plumes at Sabancaya, please don't pole vault either of the calderas, as it could be unhealthy. And we've moved on to the oh my god section where we talk about covidiocy. So, first of all, before I talk about covidiocy, let's talk about being sherbet gendered. Now, I'm sherbet gendered, all right? I don't know how many genders there really are, but I'm sherbet gendered. And I would just like everybody to know that I am sherbet gendered. What is sherbet gendered, you ask? Well, sherbet gendered is when your gender, it could be sweet, it could be sour, it could be a combination of the two. You never know what you're gonna get, but it's always sweet and creamy at the end. And the best thing is, I could be lime sherbet one day where I'm green and sour and envious, And the next day, I could be lemon sherbet, where I'm funny and bright and yellow, but also sour. You never know. I could be rainbow sherbet. I could be bubblegum sherbet. Please leave a comment if you find yourself to be sherbet gendered also. And I don't know why I'm talking about this, but let's move on to look at oh, wait. I got to get my voice back. Let's move on to some Cnbc.com pre-market data. Press and refresh here shows us that the Dow is set to open down 476 points. The S&P is set to open 64 points down. The NASDAQ set to open 241 points down. Let's take a look at some commodities real quick. As we see oil below 20 bucks a barrel once again, folks. Check it out. It actually went down $1 since I looked at this earlier. It was at 19 something. It went down over $1 in the last half an hour, folks. Silver still at $14.88 an ounce. Check it out. Total oddities here. We see, once again, we see silver correlated with the stock market. Instead of inversely proportional to it, we see it proportional. Same with gold. So that is not normal market behavior, folks, and I'm not going to comment further on that. I'm just going to move on. And oh, yeah. I'll show you gold too. Here's a gold chart. 1679.10 per ounce. And welcome to the Neo-Renaissance, folks, as we assist, study, and report on the ongoing formation of a unified theory of physics from here behind the toilet paper mic. Check out smashomash.com/forum. We've got an extensive section about you know what. Now, I don't know if you're aware, but let me just explain something to you. See that? That's called the sun. UV light in room temperature will destroy coronavirus in about 5 minutes. 5 minutes or less. So I don't know if you're aware, but when this happens, that goes and is out of here. See what I mean? And by the way, thanks, son. Thanks, son. You're doing a fine job up there. Please leave a comment if you're able to, whether it's on YouTube, BitChute, Facebook, wherever. We'll be very interested in your opinions on things like covidiocy and covidiots. Please leave us a comment if you think the word of the year shall be covidiots. So anyway, we've got a 27-page long section about coronavirus, which we started covering back on January 23rd before anybody was worried. And when people like Nancy Pelosi were telling you that it's racist to stop going to Chinese restaurants. Please leave a comment if you're still going to Chinese restaurants, as I've got to patronize one local one coming up soon. Shout out to the Asia restaurant. Woo! Next, we're looking at the jet stream. Here's the eastern jets. Here's the western jets. And we see extreme meridional jet stream flow once again over the North Atlantic, as well as over, what would that be? The Mississippi Valley, the Ohio Valley, Lake Erie, a 180-degree turn, followed by another 180-degree turn, and another 180-degree turn. And next we're going to look at water vapor maps. Here's the water vapor maps for Africa and Europe. Here are the water vapor maps for the Far East and Oceania. Looks like a strong low pressure system near Canberra. And here's a lightning map. It's lightningmaps.org. I love it. It's pretty cool to be able to forecast thunder. What are your thoughts? Next, looking at the Weather Underground U.S. Doppler radar map. We see a low pretty close to being over my head right now. It's pretty mild. And I believe it's going to be moving east. So we're going to see scattered showers where I'm located, which, by the way, is in eastern Pennsylvania. And for once, I'm going to actually look at the water vapor above my own head. And I might even look at that place over central Colorado. as we see a long string of dry mass of air. So there's what's going on over Pennsylvania. And it looks like we'll be drying out pretty soon. We're expecting some pretty warm temperatures today based on how this looks. And we could see some compressive stuff happening as this dry mass of air presses together with this dry mass of air. And that'll lead to scattered showers. And let's check out this dry massive zone over central Colorado. This should make for some incredible cloud photography. So if you're located in those regions, take a photograph of the lenticular clouds that are going to form up there. And maybe someday we'll explain why those happen. And hey, Smash team, thanks for tuning in. Please don't forget to share on your social media. Please don't forget to press like and subscribe if you haven't done so. Don't forget to subscribe over at BitChute, as there's exclusive content over there that does not appear on YouTube. And thanks for being a collaborative effort, leaving comments, etc. We appreciate it. Did you watch yesterday's The Diamond Anvil? Too hard to smash. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. It was super fun. Episode 4 is good times. Go watch that if you haven't watched it yet. And if you're watching on BitChute or on YouTube, it's in both places. The Diamond Anvil, Too Hard to Smash, coming out twice a week on Sundays and Thursdays. With my co-host, Diamond, a.k.a. David Moriello. It's no longer free, folks. We are on Subscribestar, and thanks to everybody who is looking to pay us some cash for the content, as we need a lot of funding to accomplish our goals for the year, and we're nowhere near that. However, thanks anyway to our patrons, as you're the real source of funding for the channel. Whether you're the intro level or the gold tier, we greatly appreciate your support. And by the way, all the posts for April, nearly all the posts for the entire month of April, were free. So you can sign up on Patreon and get all of the ringtones and things that we sent through, as well as some free music. Patreon.com/smAsho. Again, the real source of funding for this content. Next, we're going to look at the intensitygram, as we see 2 sunspot regions. And I gotta say, they're looking pretty degraded. There's Sunspot 2760. Not that, this. And that looks like it's going to degrade to a plage today. There's barely enough darkness to even see umbra. This area up here looks like it's going to decay to a plage also, folks. That's Sunspot 2762, a member of cycle 25. And let's look at the magnetogram here. There's the colorized magnetogram. Places to keep an eye on are this area and this area. This is cycle 24. And this is cycle 25. Both because of the polarity and because of the high latitude. So we like to see a little bit more activity kicking up here in the local yellow dwarf. And for that, we thank you. So stay tuned for one more little section here. We're going to look at, actually, we're going to do the 94 angstroms, as this will show that B-class flare that happened middle of the day yesterday. And it looks like that flare came out of Sunspot 2760, which again is this one. And you should be able to see that brighten up right there, I believe, is that little solar flare. Again, it was only B-class. So anyway, folks, thanks for tuning in. Remember, stare at the sun, don't drink, and if you do, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back and the COVIDiots absent from your hometown or wherever you're located. May the COVIDiots be absent from the Milky Way galaxy.